Exploring Antarctica by Lisa Benjamin. A difficult journey. The South Pole was harder to reach than the North Pole. The South Pole is in the center of the continent of Antarctica. The surrounding seas are dangerous, the winds strong, and the water freezing. Once the explorers reached Antarctica, they would have to cross miles of ice to reach the South Pole. In the early 1900s, there were no airplanes. The only way to make the trip was on sleds. You might think that no one would want to make this journey. In fact, two different teams decided to do it. A race between two teams. The two teams set out in 1911. They were in a race to see who would get to the South Pole first. Roald Amundsen led one team. He was an explorer from Norway. The other team was led by Robert Scott. He was an explorer from Great Britain. The two men knew the trip would not be easy. Both teams used sleds. Scott's team pulled their sleds themselves. Dogs pulled Amundsen's sleds. Many of the men wore snowshoes. The webbed bottoms kept them from sinking in the snow. Amundsen's team got a head start. They had great weather. There were no storms. They traveled quickly. But the weather changed by the time Scott set out. His team faced blizzards. Winds whistled and howled. Snow swirled all around. The men grew weak from pulling their own sleds. Scott's team was losing the race. Then the team ran into a fierce blizzard. Weak, sick, and hungry, they couldn't survive the storm. Many people today still remember Robert Scott as a brave explorer. The journey was hard, but he never gave up. Ernest Shackleton. 2 years later, Ernest Shackleton tried to reach the South Pole. He was a junior member of Robert Scott's team, but he had not made the trip with Scott. He got sick just before they left and had to stay behind. Shackleton planned his own trip. He did not want to see only the South Pole. He wanted to cross the whole continent of Antarctica. In 1914, his team left England. They traveled in a boat. Shackleton never even reached Antarctica. On the way, his ship got stuck. The seas were packed with ice, and it was too hard to steer. They were trapped. Slowly, the ice began to crush the ship. It was going to sink. The team had to get off. Otherwise, they would drown. After they left the ship, Shackleton and his team were stuck on a large piece of floating ice. They drifted for months. The weather grew warmer. The ice started to break up, so they climbed into small boats. As they sailed toward land, huge waves washed into their boats. The team got soaked. Their clothes were not waterproof. Shackleton's team finally reached an island, but they were far from help. So Shackleton got back into one of the boats with 5 men. The rest of the team set up camp and waited. Shackleton kept sailing. The seas were stormy and dangerous, and it seemed hopeless. Shackleton sailed for a month. Then he finally reached South Georgia Island. People there helped rescue the rest of the team. Luckily, Everyone made it home. Shackleton's trip was not a success, but he is still known for his courage. He saved his team when all hope was lost. Today, scientists reach the South Pole by airplane. They hope to learn more about Antarctica. The science station there is named after Amundsen and Scott. Take a look at this timeline. It shows important dates from trips to Antarctica. Antarctica trips. Winter, 1911. Scott and Amundsen sail to Antarctica. December 1911. Amundsen reaches the South Pole. January 1912. Scott reaches the South Pole. March 1912. Scott's team faces a fierce storm. August 1914. Shackleton sets sail for Antarctica. January 1915. Shackleton's ship gets stuck in the ice. November 1915. Shackleton's ship sinks. May 1916. Shackleton reaches South Georgia Island. Responding. Target skill. Main ideas and details. What is the main idea of this book? Copy the chart. Write 2 details about the main idea in the boxes below. Write about it. Text to world. Imagine you are creating a guide for explorers planning expeditions to Antarctica. Write a few sentences to describe one of the problems they might face. Give one solution to this problem. Target vocabulary. Finally. Junior. Otherwise. Slippery. Steer. Waterproof. Webbed. Whistle. Target skill. Main ideas and details. Tell important ideas and details about a topic. Target strategy. Infer. Predict. Use text clues to figure out important ideas. Genre. Narrative nonfiction tells a true story about a topic.